More people are selling homes at a loss. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's look at another article discussing people selling homes at a loss. You'd have to be pretty desperate or have no choice really to do that. And we're starting to see more and more, particularly people sharing it on Twitter, where people are buying, sitting on a property for years often, and then selling for the same price that they bought it for. Even that is a loss, guys, because of the cost of stamp duty and all of the fees and charges associated with that. That's where, compared to shares, property are a bit of a pain to move. The liquidity in the sector is, or just the time frame it takes to get out of property, it's a lot more work than, say, a real estate investment trust. But anyway, there's not the same culture, is there? Everyone loves property here in Australia. The number of home sellers making a profit has eased as the property market continues its downward trend. Loss-making sales grew the fastest in Melbourne and Sydney, according to CoreLogic data, reflecting these sharper downturns in major cities. And we've been looking at the mapping in those cities, and yes, over the last 12 months, it ain't looking good. There was a 6.4% increase in homes sold at a loss in Sydney in the June quarter and a 5.3% rise in Melbourne. Home values in the two cities had fallen by 2.8% and 1.8% respectively during the same period. Multiple interest rate hikes have led to a weakening in the home values in Sydney and Melbourne. However, residential resale results in some cities remain strong, with significant gains across almost all resales, CoreLogic's head of research Eliza Owen said. Sydney and Melbourne seem to be the ones that are copping the biggest hit, but Sydney and Melbourne are also the cities where, well, the growth in property prices has been the most dramatic. We've seen the FOMO from COVID, from the lockdowns. Property just went nuts in Australia. You know, all the articles about the RBA modelling a 40% fall in property, they really need to start giving us probability statistics of that actually occurring. Honestly, they need to, because these things are so far-fetched in our market here in Australia. Should they get the attention they deserve? And then there's the all-state religion. The government is incentivized to keep everything status quo. She said higher density city fringe markets were leading the downturn. Rising rates may be triggering more sales decision among investors, contributing to the increase in loss-making unit sales across the city, Ms. Owen said. Interest rates are tipped to keep rising, with both ANZ and Westpac expecting the official cash rate to soar by another 1% this year. Both banks are expecting another 0.5% lift in October, followed by 0.25 percentage point hikes in November and December. Mortgage holders have endured a cumulative 175 basis points in interest rate hikes since May, causing their monthly repayments to rise by hundreds of dollars. Another rate hike of 50 basis points would add $760 to monthly repayments compared to May repayments, on the average $500,000 loan with 25 years left to go, according to Rate City. And we've been looking at the impacts of interest rate rises here on the channel, and I will bring up this chart here looking at interest rate increases, and here we have the scenario of going from a 1.99% fixed mortgage to a variable of 5%. You're seeing an increase of 45%. Now these are the ones that are going to be dramatic. These are the ones that the media are warning about, people getting trapped in mortgage prisons, or people getting stuck with banks, or huge increases. But also the people who are locking in at this realize, well, they know that they should know that it's an artificially low rate. It's not real. Successive interest rate hikes are hitting first homeowners harder than established mortgage holders, according to Equifax data. Well, yeah, I mean, how many of you that have bought years ago with the insane property growth have got all this equity, mate? Did you really deserve it? I know I didn't. It's bullshit when you look at it, guys. Honestly, when you look at the growth in property values, it's insane. Even if we get a correction that's 20%, we're not going that far back in time. We're going, what, 2019, maybe 2018 in some areas. That's still expensive. We were still talking about property and housing being unaffordable for the average person back then. More and more, I'm thinking that the housing affordability crisis is just going to be a long-term issue in Australia that's just going to get worse. People have been talking about this for decades. And sadly, now you can't. Now both people working to save up to get a house is just normal. The data shows first home buyers who were more likely to have bought at the top of the market were twice as likely to have fallen behind on their home loan repayments than other mortgage holders. Meanwhile, total private sector credit or outstanding loans, as measured by the Reserve Bank, grew by 9.3% over the year to August. This was the fastest pace in almost 14 years. Comsec's Ryan Felsman said the strong growth reflected expansionary policy settings during the pandemic that prompted households and businesses to increase their borrowing. Well, yeah, they wanted to encourage everyone to borrow. And that's, let's have a look. I'll bring this up here with government to the rescue. You've got the cash rate at an insanely low rate, 3%, which we're approaching. Used to be considered emergency. So we're returning to normal rates. You've got Home Builder, which overheated the housing sector. We can see it there in the building approvals. There's other articles that have come out today saying new start for homes are the highest they've been in a very long time, which isn't a surprise. But the problem is you've got fixed price contracts, you've got inflation, and now we're seeing builders go under, a lot of the small guys. You've got 5 and 2% government loan guarantees, you've got negative gearing and super withdrawals. All of these things help juice up the market. So can you blame people? One thing that's not being mentioned here is the RBA's promise, or how the media reported statements from the RBA that many could interpret. In all fairness, you could interpret it as a promise that rates wouldn't go up until 2024. I didn't trust it, and I'm sure a lot of other viewers didn't trust the RBA. I base that purely on their terrible ability to forecast wage growth. So I got lucky. And I'm sure a lot of us did, in a sad way, guys. And also because our Reserve Bank governor has said interest rates won't go down. He said they're ineffective. And that's based on evidence in Europe of it not working, going to negative. Anyway, back to this. However, housing credit eased off in August as rising interest rates started to take effect. Mr. Felsman expects credit growth to keep slowing as the RBA keeps up its aggressive monetary policy tightening. Australia's economic troubles are far from over, Treasurer Jim Chalmers has warned. It's pretty clear that the international situation is deteriorating, he told 7:30. The Treasurer said he remained upbeat and optimistic about Australia's outlook with strong economic indicators, but warned of further economic pain in the near future. We've got a lot going for us, Dr. Chalmers said. We've got some difficult global conditions to navigate in the meantime. Honestly, I think we can get pretty lucky. I think the global conditions are probably going to just sweep us along, and we'll get through this again like last time. It's feeding through to higher inflation, falling real wages, and rising interest rates at home that will have an impact on our growth prospects and domestic economy. Well, we're starting to see shipping costs, which is one of the drivers of this inflation, at least the supply side, is going down. Falling real wages, they're starting to creep up, not really though. But rising interest rates, it looks, there's many arguing that the US, the Fed, may be forced to drop rates. Consumers have been warned to brace for higher petrol prices as the fuel excise expires and the prospect of elevated gas prices in the long term. Opposition leader Peter Dutton said the government had failed to reduce energy bills as promised. Yeah, I don't know why they even promised to do that. They told the public before the election on 97 occasions that they were going to guarantee a price reduction of $275 in people's power bills. They refused to mention that figure any day since the election, he said. Well, that's it. You just got to make a promise just to get in. And no one... do people believe promises? Let's have a talk. Does anyone actually believe the promises from Labor that they'd reduce the power bill? Let me know in the comments if you believe that would happen. Power is going to get more expensive here in Australia. We did a video looking at the the total full cost of energy, and how the methodology that's used here in most parts of the world, where they're using a levelized cost of energy and electricity, how it's incorrect. And fundamentally, costs are going to go up a lot higher than we realize. That's the future we're heading to here in Australia. I honestly don't think there's enough people that appreciate the fact that variable renewable energy and all of the infrastructure you have to build to just get close to reliable energy baseload is just going to drive up costs. I don't understand, but it'll probably take some hard lessons for people to face reality. Anyway, guys, more and more people selling homes at a loss. We'll have to see. I mean, there's always going to be some churn in a market. Some people probably made bad investment decisions, maybe buying in, dodgy apartments, overpaying, and just wanting to walk away. Maybe some people getting a tap on the shoulder from the bank going, you need to get out of that. Do it now. As always, thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Check out my other channels, HeiseBim and HeiseSays International, for other content I produce. And if you're a fan and want to support us, you can financially on YouTube or Patreon, using our referral links, buying our pocket squares, or calling us if you need an architect. Take care, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next episode of HeiseSays. It's good when the coffee's nice and cold, straight black. Way to drink it.